Anyway, the name of the poem is the name of the poem, Print of the Bird. Depiction is to paint a picture with words onto the canvas of the mind, and by God, did he do that. I listened to him read, him going on much longer than most guest poets. I listened not because I wanted to, but because he needed me to listen, for reasons unknown to me back then. Like all poets, we need each other's ears, and much more. Brendan knew he was squeezing much into less, and more into much more than he wanted to, much too much for me. But with his performance, I did depict the picture in my mind of my dad waving goodbye, never to return, and another of my sister buried beneath foreign soil in a land hostile to visitors. He continued without any inhibition, reading each poem as if it were his last, knowing that time waits for no one, least of all for those with nothing left on the clock. I could sense his sadness in the words of a joyful poem, and behind his smile an element of despair. I found it hard to hold back the tears anxious to run down the cheeks of my face, when realizing what he had depicted to me with the words of another poem, painting a picture that displayed the inevitable, helping me to eliminate all the worrying feelings and thoughts I thought I had.
That was a fine tribute from Tom to a very fine poet, a good friend of mine. John Pinchmit.
Thanks so much, Tom, and I'd also like to thank Terry for again including one of my poems, and as ever, Dominic's continuing support. The poem's on page 14, and it begins with a quote from Moby Dick. The innermost life. To Herman Melville, 1819 to 1891. When reaching far over the bow, Stubbs slowly churned his long, sharp lance into the fish and kept it there, carefully churning and churning, as if continuously seeking to feel after some gold watch that the whale might have swallowed, and which he was fearful of breaking ere he could hook it out. But that gold watch was the innermost life of the fish. Moby Dick, 1851. Stubbs' gold watch is a metaphor in my favorite novel, but my gold timepiece is real and inspired a poem my voice launched into the ether last October, and out of the blue helped me hook some Kushla slam gold from a whale of a competition, over 20 of us, 2 lances each, and if the first missed, a stove boat. And then, in January's withering cold, after earlier rejections, a revival followed. Number 14, the watch anchored on paper. And together, these first landmarks helped a graying ex-teacher navigate Limerick's churning sea of creativity here on a canal lock leading to the Shannon. In his early 20s, Melville sailed from New Bedford before the mast on the whaling ship Acushnet. Vital years unfolded, rich in experience, starting him writing, which led to an 18th century farmhouse in the Berkshires where he faced an epic struggle. 18 months often 12-hour days at his desk in creative fervor and despair, the poetry often running as hard as sap from a frozen maple tree. Until finally, when Melville was only 32, Moby Dick was launched with 3 words: "Call me Ishmael." Alas, it was into a headwind of mixed reviews, scant praise. 40 years later, at 72, its creator, in great distress and need, died. Virtually forgotten, his books out of print. 30 more years passed. Then, an age of disillusion and doubt found solace in the dark, uneven chaos of his multi-layered whaling saga, its rich mix of moods, language, digressions, as Lear-like Ahab fights to the death with the white whale. The author's reputation, like Ishmael at the end, clinging to a coffin in the strangely becalmed ocean, gained deliverance, and thus began the Melville revival in the 1920s. My modest revival continues apace, a poem at a time, with more promised at the end of this memorable year, edited by a seasoned poet in his 20s. The 20s seem good for Yanks who write. The masterpiece of world literature still crests the seas, as when Ahab, burning to wreak his vengeance on the creature that took more than his leg from him, orders all hands on deck, holds up a bright doubloon for the man who first cries, "There she blows!" citing the white mountain of Moby Dick, and with the top maul hammer, he strikes against the mast the gold for all to see on the nail. There is still gold on the nail. Yes, his vast oceans may mock my canal, river, lake. My harpoon pen seeks not a white whale, but filled white pages. An ex-teacher, Ishmael, unfolds his story, and I have a voice which delights in setting my frail crafts adrift into the air as well, fittingly, as poetry must never remain in a paged harbor, whatever the joys of seeing it first land there. Oh, ever young Melville, you are Ishmael, last survivor of the Pequod. We still weather the untrustworthy seas of our lives. Gathered here tonight at the water's edge, crossing the Locke bar, teach us how to make our words sing as clear, as moving as your mighty possessed Ahab. And may each of the hopeful, in front of this thin, echoing mast, gain safe lee shores enough out of the gales to find and then express with a unique voice like yours the gold most worth seeking, the soul's innermost life.